Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex. I'm the co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're going through an interesting rumor, just a rumor, no real sources behind this, just something that was floated on Twitter, and he is a free agent, so it does make some sense for the Giants. We're going to talk about this specific player and why maybe he could be a good fit with this defense, especially adding another experienced leader to a group that might be a little bit thin at linebacker, and his name is KJ Wright from the Seattle Seahawks. As we all know, KJ Wright is an experienced defender who is a leader for Seattle. He's been with them for over a decade, and now he's hitting the free agent market, and he might be an affordable signing. Actually, he might not be too pricey. This is an interesting player who has played weak side linebacker for the majority of his career. He would fit in like a glove next to Blake Martinez. The Giants don't have a primary coverage linebacker, but rather they have multiple safeties who kind of cover that up, that deficiency, and can actually solve those problems in coverage while their linebackers can focus on stopping the run and really mitigating short throws and flat routes. So I think that is where KJ Wright would fit into this defense, Anthony. But, when we're talking about him, it's just a rumor. Something that's floating around. But as we know, the Giants went heavy into the offseason with their free agency in mind and got a lot of really great players. So I'm not ruling out anything at this point. They have a lot of cuts coming. Guys like Sam Beal could be on the chopping block. So we'll see how all this unfolds and what kind of money they're able to open up. But, Anthony, what is your thoughts on bringing in a guy like KJ Wright?
Well, my thoughts on the rumor is that it doesn't really exist because it just came from that one Twitter account. So I'll say, though, regardless of what you think, whether or not this is something that the Giants are actually considering, because it doesn't seem like they are, it's just a fake rumor, it is still something to consider when you look at the free agent market and you look at the Giants roster. Could KJ Wright be a fit? So let's just discuss that. Is KJ Wright a good fit with the Giants? Not how likely is he to land with the Giants, because we have no idea. But he might be a decent fit with the Giants. You have Blake Martinez, your primary inside linebacker, who's a phenomenal run stuffer and a pretty decent pass rusher. Opposite of him, you have some young guys who are developing, but late-round picks. You've got Carter Coughlin, who's now transitioned into inside linebacker. And, of course, you have Tay Crowder. Those are 6th and 7th-round picks. How much do you want to rely on those guys as your secondary inside linebackers? And how frequently do you plan to be in your nickel or dime packages where you have your safeties moving into inside linebacker? That's what it's going to come down to for the Giants. How frequently they want their safeties playing linebackers, and if they don't want them playing as frequently as they're projected to right now, then they absolutely should go out and consider a guy like KJ Wright. My only concern here, though, is that KJ Wright is traditionally a 4-3 weak side linebacker, which is what has allowed him to play well in coverage throughout his entire career. So I don't really know, after playing a decade in a 4-3, how would he be able to transition to that 3-4 defense? Would he actually be a good fit in that defense, a defense that is very fast-paced, a lot of blitzing? That's really what you get from most 3-4 defenses, while 4-3 defenses are usually typically going to sit back into more zone coverages and play less aggressively. So I really wonder, would he be able to fit into this 3-4 defense? Would he be able to make that transition after playing in a 4-3 for over 10 years? But regardless, I like KJ Wright a lot. I think he's a really high-character guy. I watched him on an episode of House Hunters, and he picked the house that I thought he shouldn't have, but still, it was a very entertaining episode, and he seems like a really cool guy. And it was a lot of fun to watch that. So, I don't know. I like KJ Wright a lot. I'm just not completely sold on his fit with the Giants. I understand that this isn't really something that the Giants are pursuing right now, but when you look at the free agent market, this could potentially be a guy that you bring in to add some depth or add some talent to the roster. Just not sure if I'm completely sold on the idea right now.
Yeah, of course, looking at the position next to Blake Martinez, that's where there are some questions. Of course, Tay Crowder, I'm as high as anyone on Tay Crowder, but again, he's a 7th-round pick. He's Mr. Irrelevant. Are we really expecting him to be a long-term solution at LB2? Maybe not. Of course, optimistically, I would love for him to be that solution. I think he had a couple of good reps in pass coverage last year. I think he had an interception early. He tipped one up to Darnay Holmes, who caught it against Seattle. So he overall, he had some good moments. He had some bad moments. He was a rookie, a 7th-round rookie at that, so he was going to be facing an uphill battle the entire season, I thought, for the most part. He didn't look like a 7th-round rookie. He looked maybe like a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, and that's really the most you can ask from a player like that. So I'm actually a little optimistic on Tay Crowder coming into this season. I thought, for the most part, he wasn't always out of position. He didn't really show up on tape as someone that was making constant mistakes. But again, I don't know if I rely on him as an everyday starter. And behind him, you have Reggie Ragland, Devontae Downs. I don't trust Devontae Downs with anything. I wouldn't trust him picking up the poop from my cat when he nukes me. That's how little I trust Devontae Downs. But when it comes to Reggie Ragland, I think he's just a cheaper replacement for Mayo. I thought the Giants cut Mayo. They saved like $3 million. They signed Reggie Ragland on a veteran minimum deal, and I think he is Blake Martinez's backup. I do not anticipate him being a starter this season. He was not very good with Detroit. He's just an Alabama product. The Giants coaching staff has familiarity with him, and I think he's a cheaper alternative to Mayo. And that really is how I see him fitting into this defense. Now, that LB2 position still remains a big issue. If you're running with Devontae Downs, he's really playing weak side, he's a bigger linebacker. He's not good in coverage. He's not even that great of a tackler. And then you have Reggie Ragland, who is pretty much the same. And then Tay Crowder, he's like okay in coverage and okay tackler. He's nothing great. So the Giants do have a weakness at that position, but they do cover it up pretty sufficiently with that trio of safeties and Xavier McKinney coming back, Logan Ryan, and Jabril Peppers. But if you go out and get a guy like KJ Wright, he signed a 2-year, I think $14 million deal with Seattle 2 years ago. And for the most part, it wasn't that pricey, right? He was a $5.5 million cap hit at 30 years old in 2019, and he was a $10 million cap hit last year. The Giants might be able to land him on a 1-year, $5 million deal, which in my opinion, it can't hurt, right? It's not the worst contract in the world to bring in a guy like KJ Wright, who's extremely experienced. He would really help those youngsters on the defensive front, and he can play multiple positions, right? He could be Blake Martinez's backup instead of Reggie Ragland. If it came to be, he can play strong side, he can play weak side, and he's not the worst person in coverage. I wouldn't trust him every down in coverage by any means, but that's why you have the safeties. KJ Wright is a phenomenal player. He has been his entire career. He's older now at 32 years old, so there is reason to believe that his best days are behind him, given the lower contract that I kind of offered up for him on a 1-year, $5 million deal. He's only 2 years removed, 2019, 132 combined tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and a quarterback hit. Last year, he played a kind of a right outside linebacker, strong side linebacker role, and he had 11 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 86 combined tackles, 10 passes defended, a forced fumble, and he looked pretty good, man. I don't know. He has that diversity in alignments that Patrick Graham likes on defense. A 1-year, $5 million deal for a player of his magnitude would be an absolute steal, in my opinion. He can do multiple things for this defense. But again, where is this money coming from? The Giants on overthecap.com only have $2.9 million to spare. And Dave Gettleman loves to go into the season with money. He loves to have a couple million. Last year he did it. Xavier McKinney went down. They ended up landing Logan Ryan. So that's kind of how I view this. And especially with the offensive line being extremely thin, you don't really want to overspend on linebacker when your defense is a strong point. At this point, you might want to take that money and allocate it toward the offensive line. So that's another reason that KJ Wright would probably not be an option for the Giants. But again, if they do feel good about the offensive line, they feel good about their depth there, they have some extra cash, like, well, we're not spending it, we might as well use it on a 1-year deal that's going to expire next season anyway. Might as well go out and get one of the most experienced linebackers in football who can bring experience and just talent to a position that is considered a weakness right now, Anthony. So when you're looking at this, just final thoughts on KJ Wright, just a short video talking about this pretty much non-existent rumor that he is a free agent, worth talking about, kind of fun, off-season, screw it. When you're talking about KJ Wright, do you think the Giants look at this and say, our offensive line, we're saving that money for that unit in case we need it? Or do you think they're like, yeah, KJ Wright's still that good, we might as well put some money into that LB2 spot and then walk into the sunset on defense and be one of the best in football?
I don't think that this signing would ever happen, just because I know that Dave Gettleman and the Giants love to go into the season with insurance money. And right now they don't have a lot of money. I think Dave Gettleman said he usually likes to leave at least $5 million worth of insurance money, and they're underneath of that goal right now. Of course, they might get there by the end of preseason with cuts and everything. After training camp and preseason, they might make some cuts, free up some money, and get that insurance. But I don't see them spending that insurance money on a linebacker heading into the season, because they do have such a young defense with young linebackers, and they have such great safeties who can play linebacker. Now, I do think that KJ Wright would be a really great player to add, just because he is such an excellent coverage linebacker in a 4-3 defense. 21 passes defended in 2019 and 2020 with 4 interceptions in that same span. So those past 2 seasons, you're seeing that he's just one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL if you're talking about pure coverage abilities. So I think that would be a great get for the Giants, because they don't have a good coverage linebacker on their roster, but that's why they have all those great safeties on their roster, with Jabril Peppers, Xavier McKinney, and Logan Ryan. You don't necessarily need a coverage linebacker. So it's going to come down to, what does Patrick Graham want? Does he want a coverage linebacker? If he does, I think KJ Wright would be a phenomenal signing. I think he would be an inexpensive signing as well, but the Giants also just don't have money to spend on anybody, inexpensive or not. So ultimately, I don't think it happens. If it does, though, I will welcome it with open arms because I think KJ Wright is a really high character guy and a really solid talent and great coverage linebacker. So I would love the signing. I just don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I think that's probably where my head's at too. But again, if they did manage to get him, all hands aboard, man. I'm on board with it. I would love to see him in blue. And the Giants, I mean, the more insane pieces they add to this defense, the more excited I get. So it's, I'm not going to be like, oh, hell, we got KJ Wright. Now we don't have money to spend elsewhere. Whatever, screw it. I'd be fine with it. Again, this is up to Dave Gettleman. He loves to have a little bit of cash left over. I think they're going to wait until after cuts, see if KJ Wright sticks around. Maybe his price drops because of it. And then maybe get him for a 1 year, $3-4 million deal. And that is a freaking steal for a player of his quality. So something to keep in mind. Player to look at during training camp. See where he lands. See if he's still on the board. Maybe the Giants try and draw him in with a lot of good players on their defense. I'm sure they could convince him if he was looking to come to a team that's ready to put forth a winning team right now. I think the Giants could be in that category. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants. Make sure to subscribe below. Short little video for you guys on KJ Wright today over the weekend. Have a phenomenal weekend. Going to be beautiful out. So enjoy that. Enjoy Father's Day. Make sure to get some Manscaped products from us and use that Fireside Giants 20 code in the description. As always, thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.